So Nintendo announced the Switch 2, and I did record a reaction to the trailer, but it was largely what I was expecting, so it didn't elicit anything huge from me. I'll still include it here though, but I kinda feel like a more thought out discussion would be more worthwhile. Oh, and I'm Wes the Explosion, by the way. Now, for my unfiltered reaction. Okay, I was at work all day, so I am just now getting around to seeing the Switch 2 trailer. I do know from thumbnails what it vaguely looks like, and I know the name Switch 2. But otherwise, all I'm really expecting from this is the Switch again, maybe a little more powerful, and a little bigger, but I don't know. We'll see if this can elicit a reaction from me. That is a Switch. That is like a base Switch. Oh no, it is bigger. Oh no, it's shedding. I mean, most of this still looks kinda standard. I guess the back, the kickstand's a little nicer. Oh, it can do some yoga stretches. That's neat. Joy-Cons are bigger, that makes sense. Although that does kind of raise the question, are old Joy-Cons going to be compatible with this? I know they're supposed to be backwards compatible. Well, that looks kind of... How awkward's that going to be? Trying to stick the old ones in the new ones. And I think I also heard rumors about something like it's gonna like magnet themselves into the system. I don't know. We'll see. They're skittering around. Oh, well, that's not magnets. I mean, it's still clicking into, what do you want to call them? Maybe it's magnetic. I don't know. To Nintendo Switch. I mean, it's 2 minutes. Is that it? I didn't get the expansion pass, but that looks like it might be a new Mario Kart. Not just a port of 8. Then again, I think it's supposed to be backwards compatible, so it wouldn't even need to be a port, it would just be the same thing. Yep, see? Plays Nintendo Switch exclusives. Okay, that's kind of like how the new 3DS worked. Where you could play old, 3DS games on there, but like the newer ones, I can't remember if you couldn't play them on old 3DSs or if it was okay. So that was it. 2 minutes went by so fast. But yeah, like it would at the very least chug along if you tried to play a, like Majora's Mask HD on your old 3DS. It might not have worked at all. Okay, I don't know if I actually have anything clever to say about this. While it didn't get into technical specs, it was largely what I was expecting. A bigger and probably more powerful Switch. And while it might be hard to judge before getting one in my hands, it does look like a pretty decent size difference. I might look even stupider dragging this thing around with me everywhere. The system also seems to have largely the same stuff around the edges as the regular Switch. The dock port on the bottom, power, volume slits for sound, cartridge slot, and headphone jack on the top. But there's also an extra port. Couldn't quite tell from this angle if it was just another USB or not, though the internet seems to think yes. Have to wonder if it's for something special or just another place to plug in a controller. And I mean, with as fast as the trailer goes and how we're not getting a close look at every nook, I'm not entirely sure where the memory card slot is. If I had to guess, I'd say it's the small indent on the right under the kickstand where it normally is. Speaking of, the system's leg looks a lot better than the wimpy one the original had, though I didn't mind the one for the OLED. This one looks pretty good though, not that that's my main concern. Then they get to the Joy-Cons, which are a bit longer, with the right one having an extra square button under the one for home, and larger buttons on the side. They seem to lock with the pin board on either side of the console, though I have to wonder whether there will be anything else to hold them in place. I've heard rumors of them mag-locking, which could be what the ovals in there are for. There is a square hole underneath the slot on the Joy-Con side, And there's also an extra smaller button underneath the Z's, which could be for unlocking them. Then they show the system off a little bit more and then mention that it's backwards compatible, which is something they announced a while before this, before we even knew the console's name. It also says that some Switch games might not be supported on the Switch 2, which I kinda wonder what that's about. You'd think that anything the old hardware could do, the new one could do better, so it's a little curious. Maybe a feature of the original Switch isn't making it onto the new version. I have seen a few people guess that it has to do with peripherals. Maybe everything will work and they just want an out if something randomly doesn't. Or maybe it'll be so that they can kick you off of Splatoon 3 to get you to pick up Splatoon 4. I swear, the main reason they killed the old eShop was to sell NSO subscriptions and new ports. That pretty much does it for the new system, other than the name. Switch 2 is fine. I personally was hoping for the Super Nintendo Switch, but my first console was the SNES, and I am weak to nostalgia. Why do you think I mostly cover retro games or indie games that evoke them? While some do think that the name is lame, at least it's not confusing like Microsoft. I know the original Xbox and the 360, but have no idea which is which after that, and I mean, Sony gets away with numbers. People love the Switch, so making a direct sequel that's the same but more is a good move. And just tacking 2 on the end of the old name is the most obvious way to communicate this. So while Switch 2 certainly wouldn't have been my first pick, I can't really fault them on it. As for what I'm hoping for from the system, some of which we have some ideas on, it'd be nice if the backwards compatibility were all-encompassing. Obviously, it'll play most games. I'd guess that you'd be able to transfer over all your digital titles and save data, just like you can when you buy a new Switch, and I also imagine that your NSO subscription will carry over, complete with its library of retro games. It'd also be pretty neat if all your old equipment could be used. Controllers, memory cards, and docks. Docks might be a long shot, since while the connector does look similar, the different sizes could make things difficult. If it's the same thickness, maybe the sides could just stick out a bit more, but I'm still not counting on it. Changing memory cards seems like the sort of thing that they'd have to go out of their way to be a pain in the butt about, the same with Pro controllers and anything else that connects through USB, but Joy-Cons seem a little more unlikely. I mean, maybe they could make an adapter to make them easier to charge and sync up on their own, but I don't see how they'd be able to slot into the console itself. Though, who knows, they could prove me wrong. If everyone does need to replace the ones they have with the bigger versions though, I hope they at least get rid of the drift problem. Though backing up, would also be nice if we had more than one memory card slot again. That makes it a lot easier to upgrade the one you have and transfer data. Though I won't hold my breath. And hey, while I'm being sarcastically optimistic, would also be nice if they cleaned up the shop so that you could actually find good stuff without it getting buried by shovelware and not quite porn games. And I'm also hoping for a lot of availability from the get-go. I got the Switch at launch, love Nintendo, and it'd be good for content if I had one as early as possible. Might do an unboxing if I get it day one. So if I could either easily pre-order one or walk into a store day of to pick up a Switch 2, no need to wait for a restock, stand outside all night, or contend with scalpers, that'd be pretty great. And Nintendo has reportedly claimed that they plan to have a ton in stock at launch to combat this, but who knows with them. Will they actually have enough so that everyone, or at least most, can pick them up immediately? Or will this be another, we thought only 5 people would want a Lucina amiibo situation? I'm a little more willing to believe them on this though, since it does seem like they've been trying to combat scalpers recently, like how they only sold their overpriced alarm clock in limited quantities through My Nintendo accounts. But I might also just really want this to be true. And of course, I'm wondering how much stronger the Switch 2 will be. While I wouldn't mind nicer graphics, I'm not the type who needs to see individual pores and hairs to be immersed, so I won't care too much if it's not cutting edge or even all that better. But at the same time, some things do run pretty poorly with stuttering and crashes. Some games are miserable on Switch, while being just fine on Steam or elsewhere. Also know that some people have some false hope with this. While I think some titles could see a boost, I also remember some trying to push Scarlet and Violet's issues on the Switch, saying that it definitely looked better on the new system, and all I could think of was, no. Prettier games have played much better on Switch. This is on Game Freak. Let me stop there before I go off on a Pokemon Defender rant. Of course, the big selling point and the thing people are gonna want to know are the games. didn't really show too much in the trailer, which felt a bit odd on the whole. It was more just a long commercial rather than a full presentation, which you'd think an announcement of this magnitude would call for, but hey, at least I didn't have to worry about too many thumbnail spoilers. There were a lot of leaks surrounding the Switch 2, which I'm sure most of you are aware of, so they might have just wanted to get the thing out there before even more came out. Still, we can take a guess at 3 titles at the very least. Metroid Prime 4 was announced as a Switch title, but my guess is that it'll be one that straddles both, like Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild, launching for the new system but also available for the previous. Pokemon Legends ZA could be another one, since while it did show the Switch logo at the start and end of the trailer, I don't think there's been a hard and fast commitment to that. Plus, why wouldn't Game Freak and Nintendo want the big new Pokemon game on the big new console? And of course, it does look like that Mario Kart is different from 8 Deluxe. So that's all but a guarantee. That was the best-selling Switch game, so pairing sequels for both would be a savvy move. Beyond that, who knows, other than that the April 2nd Direct is gonna be big. As for my own wish list, I'd like an expanded port of Smash Ultimate. I like the way it plays, and there's no beating that roster, which I think would be hard to assemble again. If they just do a deluxe edition with all the DLC, some new fighters and stages, and start doing more fighter passes, I'd be in heaven. Even did a video on which characters are my most wanted, if you want to check that out. I'd like a Pikmin 5 with actual difficulty options, since just not using a bunch of the mechanics to handicap yourself doesn't count. They seem to be trying to build Donkey Kong back up, so I'm hoping they capitalize on that, and I wouldn't mind a new F-Zero either. And since everyone else is saying it, a Kid Icarus Uprising remake would be appreciated, since I want to play the game, just not with that control scheme. Also, it's my damn list, so I want ARMS 2, either more moderately priced or with more modes, like a single player campaign. On that note, I'm also expecting one new property, since that seems to be the quota, though if they wanted to do more, I'd be open to it. Everything else, just give us more games in the series and I'll be happy. Don't think I have to worry too much about getting another Fire Emblem or Splatoon. Those are just the ones that I have specific concerns about. Oh, and Rockman Tyson. Not necessarily a Switch 2 thing, but we've been waiting so long, Capcom. Also would like collections for Star Force and Legends, a new game for any series but Zero would be great, and I'd even rebuy X-Dive Offline if you ported it. Please, Capcom, I have money. That pretty much sums up my wants and desires. So there you go. My thoughts on the Switch 2 trailer and my own hopes for the system. Given that I normally cover Mega Man, it feels a little weird trying to be topical and current, but hey, only get one chance to react to news like this. Also a little hard to manage a quick turnaround given that I have a more traditional 9 to 5. So hey, let me know whether this works on the channel or not, reaction included. I didn't think mine was anything too spectacular, but I watched someone else's after the fact and it wasn't too different, so for all I know, this is what the youth of today craves. And of course, let me know your own thoughts on the Switch 2, if you noticed anything I didn't, whether you plan on picking one up yourself, and what sort of games you'd like to see announced. With that, I'm gonna cut it here, so thanks as always for watching, and maybe consider subscribing if you're into retro games, especially Mega Man. Switch 2 doesn't have a slogan yet, I don't think. Double your pleasure, double your fun?